The spotlight burned hot on the soundstage, mid-laugh track. Steve Harvey gripped the envelope, his fingers creasing the edges as the audience's applause faded into expectant hum. Cameras rolled. "All right, folks, we've got a special one here today," he said, voice booming through the monitors. He slit it open with a flourish, but his smile froze. The girl's handwriting, tiny, looping letters, hit him like a draft from an open grave. He read silently first, then aloud. The studio lights seemed to dim. The letter began innocently. "Dear Mr. Harvey, my name is Lily. I'm 9. Daddy says you're funny like a uncle we don't have." Chuckles rippled. Steve pushed on, his rhythm off now. "But Mommy's gone away. She left when I was little. Daddy works all night at the trucks. I make dinner from boxes. Sometimes I forget to eat." The laughs died. Cameras zoomed tight. Steve's eyes scanned ahead, jaw tightening. He cleared his throat. No punchline came. "If this story's gripping you already, hit that." Steve folded the paper halfway, but kept reading. "I watch your show every day after school. You make people happy. But last week, Daddy came home quiet. He sat in the dark. I wrote this because... what if he decides to go away too, like Mommy? You talk about family sticking. Can you tell him how?" The audience shifted. Whispers snaked through the rows. Producers in the booth exchanged glances. No commercial break yet. Steve's hand trembled slightly. He set the letter down, mic still hot. "Cut the tape," he muttered. No one moved. Silence swallowed the stage. Backstage monitors flickered as the director signaled frantically. Steve stood there, tie askew, staring at the envelope like it pulsed. The crew froze, grips with headsets dangling, makeup artists mid-powder puff. He'd read thousands of these. Fan mail was the show's heartbeat, sob stories polished into feel-good segments. But this... Lily's words clawed deeper. No address on the envelope. Just "from a girl who needs hope." He remembered his own fragments, nights scraping by, family threads fraying under pressure. The camera guy mouthed, "Keep rolling." Steve waved him off. He paced to the edge of the set, velvet curtains parting like hesitant breaths. The audience leaned forward, a sea of wide eyes under the Klieg's. "Y'all, this ain't scripted," Steve said, voice low, gravelly. No music cue swelled. This little girl out there, alone in some kitchen with empty chairs, Daddy breaking slow, and she's reaching out through a TV screen. Murmurs swelled. A woman in row 3 clutched her purse. Steve picked up the letter again, tracing the ink smudges, probably tears, or just a child's unsteady hand. Flashback hit him unbidden. His Chicago upbringing. Corners where dreams curdled fast, but he shoved it down. Focus. We got lights, cameras, action here. But out there... He gestured wide, encompassing the invisible world beyond the studio walls. Real life's grinding. No laugh track. The floor manager edged closer, tablet glowing with cues. Steve ignored him. His mind raced. Trace the postmark? Atlanta? No, faded. Call security? Too slow. The weight pressed. One girl's plea, echoing every unseen struggle he'd glossed over for ratings. The host's chair creaked as he sat heavy. "Lily, if you're watching, and I pray you are, hold tight." His words hung, unpolished. The audience held breath, phones forgotten in laps. A producer's voice crackled in his earpiece. "Steve, wrap it. Sponsor slot in 2. He yanked the piece out, tossed it aside. "Nah, this stops now." Studio lights buzzed louder in the quiet. Crew hands hovered over switches, afraid to kill the feed. Memories surfaced sharp. His daughter's first steps amid chaos, vows to shield them from the grind. Lily's dad, faceless, trucker shoulders slumped at a diner table, miles from home. Steve's voice dropped to a rumble. "Man's fighting shadows." Kids holding the fort with cereal bowls. He scanned faces, audience rapt, some nodding slow recognition. Tension coiled. What next? No script said expose the roar. But stopping mid-show? Career roulette. Footsteps echoed. Network exec slipping in from the wings, face pale under fluorescence. Steve met his gaze, unyielding. The letter lay open on the desk, words glaring. "We read these for inspiration," he continued, "but this one's a mirror, cracked." Whispers turned to soft gasps. A child in the front row fidgeted, mirroring Lily's age. Steve leaned into the mic. "Daddy, wherever you are, get home. She's waiting." The exec froze mid-stride. Cameras caught it all, Steve's knuckles white on the desk edge. Sweat beaded under collar lights. The booth panicked, live stream metrics spiking wild. No one dared cut. Audience clapped tentative, then fervent. Steve stood again, envelope in fist. "We're finding her, tonight." Bold claim, no plan, just gut fire. Backstage, assistants scrambled for postal logs. Tension thickened air like fog rolling in. He turned to the crowd. "Y'all been there? Quiet houses? Heavy silences?" Nods rippled. Stories unspoken surfaced in eyes. Steve's pulse thrummed. This wasn't entertainment anymore. It was reckoning. The little girl's words had pierced the glamour bubble, exposing veins beneath. Studio still hushed, waiting his next move. The director finally hit pause on non-essentials. House lights up subtle. Steve waved it back. "No, keep 'em guessing." His laugh was hollow, edged. Lily's plea looped in his head. Family sticking. He'd built a brand on it, now tested raw. Exec whispered urgent in his ear. "Legal, liability." Steve shrugged him off. "Risk it." The envelope crinkled anew. As crew mobilized, emails firing to mailroom, calls to stations, he paced. 9 years old, boxes for dinner, Dad's long shadows, tension mounted. Would they trace her? What if too late? Audience hung on every step, phones now recording covert, viral spark ignited. Steve paused at center stage, letter aloft like a flag. "This changes the taping. We're live with purpose now." Whispers built to hum. A grip muttered, "Boss man's locked in." Steve nodded to camera 3. "Lily, hold the line, helps rolling." But doubt gnawed. How? Trucks crisscrossed interstates endless. He sank into thought, stage vast around him. The silence stretched, pregnant. Producers huddled, screens alive with incoming messages, tips, leads. One broke through. Mailroom flagged it. Chicago postmark. Faint, but there. Steve's eyes sharpened. His city roots deep. "Get me lines to haulers," he barked off mic. Tension peaked, threads pulling taut. Audience sensed shift, leaning electric. The girl's letter had halted the machine, birthing something real amid artifice. He addressed them direct. "This ain't over. Stay with us." But as calls lit boards, a chill hit. What if her world had already tilted further? Studio pulse matched his, racing, unresolved. The envelope, once prop, now talisman. Steve gripped it tight, vowing silent pursuit. Fade to interim hush, hooks dangling for more. Steve's fingers trembled as he slipped the envelope into his jacket pocket, the studio lights harsh against the sudden void. Cameras still rolled, but the director's frantic signals went ignored. Cut it? No. Steve muttered to himself, voice low under the rising murmur of crew. He waved off the stage manager, eyes fixed on the exit door at the back of the soundstage. The girl's words burned in his mind, simple, jagged pleas from a world he thought he'd left behind in Chicago's tougher blocks. Outside, Atlanta's humid night wrapped around him like a damp shroud. He slid into the back of his black SUV, the driver glancing in the rear view. "Home, Mr. Harvey?" Steve shook his head, pulling out his phone. "Find me an address. Willow Creek Apartments, East Side. And keep it quiet." The engine hummed to life, slicing through traffic as Steve unfolded the letter again under the passing streetlights. Lily's handwriting, looped and childish. "Dear Mr. Harvey, my daddy says you're the king of laughs, but mommy don't laugh no more since the bad days started. Can you fix it? P.S. I saved my allowance for this stamp." The SUV pulled up to a sagging complex. Chain-link fences rattling in the breeze. Paint peeled from concrete stairs, a stray cat bolted from overflowing trash bins. Steve stepped out, envelope clutched like a shield, knocking on Unit 12B. Footsteps shuffled inside, then the door cracked open. A woman in her 30s, eyes hollowed by exhaustion, peered out. "Yes? Mrs. Harlan, I'm Steve Harvey." Her face flickered, recognition, then wariness. She stepped aside, gesturing him in. The apartment smelled of instant noodles and faint mildew. Toys scattered the floor. A TV flickered with a muted game show rerun. "Lily's asleep," she whispered, glancing toward a dim hallway. "How'd you—" "The letter. Got it on stage today." Steve sat on a worn couch, the springs groaning. She sank into a chair opposite, hands twisting a dish rag. "She's 8, writes to everyone, celebrities, the mayor, thinks words fix things." Silence stretched, broken only by the fridge's hum. Steve leaned forward. "Tell me about the bad days." Her voice cracked the air, measured. "Husband left 2 years back, bills stacked like bricks. I work doubles at the diner, but it's never enough. Lily sees it all, skips meals so I eat, draws pictures of happy families that ain't ours." Steve nodded, the weight settling deeper. He'd seen this script before, in his own rearview mirror. "Why me? Outer all the noise? You make people smile on TV. Lily says if you read it, maybe." She trailed off, eyes on the letter in his lap. Back in the SUV, Steve stared at the dashboard glow. Dawn crept over the skyline as he dialed his assistant. Pull records, quietly, Harlan family, Willow Creek, grants, job leads, whatever fits without fanfare. He hung up, the envelope now creased from endless folds. But doubt gnawed. One letter, one night. Could it shift the scales? Days blurred into a shadowed routine. Steve skipped a red carpet gala, claiming flu. Instead, he drove back to Willow Creek under cover of dusk. Lily answered this time, pigtails askew, eyes wide as saucers. "You're real!" She tugged him inside, chattering about school plays and her magic stamp. Mrs. Harlan watched from the kitchen, a faint curve touching her lips for the first time. He sat cross-legged on the rug, letting Lily read her letter aloud, voice piping through stumbles. Each word twisted the knife, innocence clashing with hard edges. "What now, kiddo?" Steve asked when she finished. Lily shrugged. "Make mommy laugh like you do on TV." That night, alone in his study, Steve penned a reply. Not the polished showman script, but raw lines from a man who'd hustled from nothing. He enclosed a check, modest, traceable to a job program he'd quietly fund. No cameras, no applause, mailed it himself at a corner box. Weeks later, the studio buzzed as usual. Steve pocketed another fan letter, routine turning to ritual. But Lily's had cracked something open, a quiet vow amid the glamour. The crew noticed his sharper focus, the pauses before punchlines heavier with intent. If you're glued to this tale, hit that. Yet the real test loomed. A call came mid-rehearsal. Mrs. Harlan's voice, steadier. "Got the interview tomorrow. Lily's over the moon." Steve exhaled, the studio lights softening. But as he glanced at the envelope stack, another caught his eye, scrawled in tiny print. The cycle spun on, tension uncoiling just enough to breathe. Steve's fingers hesitated over the small envelope, its edges frayed like whispers worn thin by tiny hands. The handwriting looped in uneven curls, childlike yet deliberate, to Mr. Harvey from Mia, age 8. The audience murmured faintly, the crew's lights humming overhead like distant stars. He slit it open with a thumbnail, unfolding a single sheet dotted with crayon hearts. "Dear Mr. Harvey," it began, the words pressed hard into the paper. "I watch you every day after school. You make people laugh when things feel heavy. My house is small, and sometimes the nights are long. Daddy left when I was little, and Mommy works late at the diner. She comes home tired, with smiles that don't reach her eyes. I try to help, but I'm just me. Last week the lights flickered off again, and I sat in the dark thinking about your jokes. Could you tell one for me next time? Maybe about a girl who finds a way to light up her own room? The studio's rhythm stuttered. Steve's throat tightened, the page blurring under the spots. He lowered it slowly, eyes scanning the crowd, faces frozen mid-smile, producers gesturing subtly from the wings. No punchline rose this time, just silence thick as fog rolling in off Lake Erie. If you're hooked on stories like this that pull you right in, hit that. Steve cleared his throat, microphone crackling. Folks, this one's different. He held up the letter, voice steady, but laced with gravel. Mia, age 8. She's out there somewhere, waiting for a laugh in the dark. The bandleader paused, mid-note, keys hovering. A producer whispered into a headset, but Steve waved him off. Cameras rolled on, capturing the hush. He leaned into the desk, elbows planted. Memories flickered. His own Cleveland nights, scraping by in a one-room walk-up, hunger gnawing like an old friend. Mia writes about lights going out, about holding it together when the grown-ups can't. Pauses stretched, each second a tightrope. The audience shifted. Her breaths sinking in the quiet. No applause cues, no upbeat swells, just the weight of her words hanging. Backstage, the floor director froze, stopwatch forgotten. Steve, we got 2 minutes to commercial, he hissed through the earpiece. Steve ignored it, folding the letter carefully. You know, I've been where that dark feels endless. Piled bills higher than hopes, wondering if the next day flips the script. His gaze swept the stands, a mother clutching her kid's hand, an elderly man nodding slow. Tension coiled tighter, unspoken questions rippling. What now? He stood, envelope in fist. Mia, if you're watching, and I bet you are, this joke's for you. The crowd leaned forward. Why did the light bulb go to school? To get brighter than the shadows. A ripple of chuckles broke the ice, tentative at first, then warmer. But Steve didn't smile. It's not just funny, it's a reminder. We all got our dark corners, but one spark, that's enough. The director signaled frantically, but Steve pressed on. Crew, hold the brake, gasps echoed. He grabbed the phone line open to the audience. Who's got a story like Mia's? Call in. Lines lit up instantly. First caller, a dad from Atlanta. My girl's 9, lost her mom last year. We watch you to forget the quiet. Steve nodded, eyes distant. Tension hummed. Would the show crack under this raw turn? Minutes bled into the segment. Callers poured in. A teen from Detroit sketching dreams on napkins. A grandma in Chicago rationing heat. Each voice layered the air, building a mosaic of quiet struggles. Steve fielded them, no scripts, just nods and hang in there. The studio pulsed now, not with laughs, but shared breaths. Producers huddled, whispers of ratings gold, mixing with concern. As the clock ticked toward blackout, Steve addressed the lens directly. Mia, your letter stopped us cold, not because it's sad, because it's real. Keep that crayon handy. Draw your light. He placed the envelope front and center on his desk, a beacon under the spots. The audience rose, not in thunder, but a wave of quiet claps, rippling like wind over water. Fade to commercial never came. Instead, the show pivoted, Steve announcing an impromptu fan letter drive. Send yours. We'll read 'em live next week. Crew scrambled, adapting on the fly. Backstage, the little envelope stayed pinned to his mirror, a daily anchor. Weeks later, packages flooded the studio. Mia's full name surfaced, from a suburb outside Philly. Steve's team traced her, not with fanfare, but a quiet package. Books on stars, glow sticks, a personal video. Kiddo, you lit up our whole world, he said on tape. No polish, just truth. Her reply came crayon scrawled again. Thanks, Mr. Harvey. My room glows now. No grand fixes, no sweeping gestures, just ripples from one letter, one pause. Steve's segments evolved. Less gloss, more grit. Ratings climbed, not from spectacle, but the pull of unfiltered connection. The studio never fell silent again. It listened. And in those late-night reruns, when the lights dim low, folks like Mia find their spark. One envelope at a time. Hey, if this story moved you, smash